6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Hi everybody, we're live here at Tropical Nomad, 6:30 every Monday. Speak Up Monday, episode number 289 from memory. So tonight we have Nicholas Levenstein, who is our guest of honor. Welcome to the show, Nicholas.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. So tonight, as you would have known, so the last few weeks, especially last week, we're here in Bali, Indonesia, and what we're talking about is this Silicon Bali, okay? And last week we had this wonderful show, Decrypting Silicon Bali, with some, let's call them ecosystem builders amongst us here in Bali. And what we realized is that there's 3 things that you need to create this as a thriving ecosystem. In no particular order. Number 1 is the talent. Number 2 is the capital. And number 3 are the projects. So these 3 things in close proximity is what can create another Silicon Valley that we're calling Silicon Bali. So tonight we're talking to Nicholas Levenstein, and the title is about something that's probably dear to many of the people's hearts here, which is about, well, we're into this wonderful crypto, right? We're into blockchain. But recently, some weeks ago, quite a few people lost a lot of money in crypto. So maybe some people are saying, well, why didn't you do this 6 weeks ago when we needed your help? So we're going to do it tonight. Now, Nicholas is a hedge fund manager, also a trader. And tonight's show is about how to not lose money in crypto. So I guess the thing which, in a way, interests and intrigues me from the get-go is, a lot of people are struggling with adoption. Mass adoption. So then we're looking for real-world examples that also tonight you've created a token for Tropical Nomad that we'll get into as well, which is a real-world adoption story, not a figment of your imagination, which is great. But how does a hedge fund manager become part of this world called crypto? Because in a way they seem to be diametrically opposed for some people. It feels like some are on this traditional front of, hey, we do hedge funds, and then the other, these rambunctious bunch of people are into this other thing called crypto, this new way of doing business, this new way of valuing assets. So if I asked you then, how did it happen for you? How did hedge funds become crypto? What would you say?
In my particular case,
yeah.
Well, I've heard this story a lot, and it happens to most men at a much younger age, but I actually found out I was going to be a dad, and I just needed to, I'd been successful as a business person before and a speculator before, but I wanted to get some kind of paycheck, and I thought, oh, real job? Well, let's not get carried away. But I just started scratching my brain about things you could do to sort of create a dependable dollar income. And I hadn't really discovered anything new, but I had discovered, a way of making money, a particular trade, which seemed to be ignored at that time. Now, I've talked to people who've been like crazy successful in crypto. Arthur Hayes is someone I admire a lot, who started BitMEX in Hong Kong, and I'd interviewed him at one point, like you did. So, he actually, it turns out much later I found out was doing the very same thing. But the dumbness in a good way about Bitcoin, it's just about transferring an asset, allowed an enormous amount of financial creativity around it. And pretty soon, people who'd worked in derivatives on Wall Street had created futures exchanges for Bitcoin. Some early ones were Deribit, and then BitMEX, these guys I met in Hong Kong. And there was a trade that people, I was doing this for 3 years. For the first year, it was just on my own. I didn't have investors or anything. Although I did hire an accountant right away and, form a company, because I didn't, you want to make sure you're not crazy. Like, someone has to be looking at you. But the whole time, I was like, wow, you can make 50 or 60% a year returns doing this. And I did, actually, in the first 3 years. And everybody in crypto is like, that's nuts. Like, why are you doing with these stupid, 20th century instruments that you can buy the Bitcoin for $1,000 and sell it for $1,100 and collect your money in a couple of months. And of course you make extra if it crashes early. I can tell you the mechanics of how that works. But it's a really low risk trade, and it's actually unique in the history of finance. So the people in crypto thought I was crazy because you could make like 50% on your money instead of 1,000 times like an early Bitcoin investor. The people in Wall Street thought that Bitcoin was just utterly toxic. And I just from living in New York City, I met a couple of people really influenced in finance, like the head of international equities for AllianceBernstein, who have a special yearly lunch where he would just tell me how crazy I was to have anything to do with crypto and how toxic it was, and made sure I'd sold some of my Bitcoin. So for whatever reason, it existed for quite a while. It's, I mean, do you want me to go more into the mechanics of the trade, or?
So we'll get into the mechanics of trade afterwards. So now, just to, and I love your stories, man. So what the question is that, like, how did you find your way? Because again, they seem initially, as you said, some of the guys in the market were saying, you're crazy to look at this Bitcoin thing. What are you doing? So what was it that you thought, well, you know what, I'm going to give this thing a try? Like, what was it? What was underneath it?
Well, I mean, I guess I'd point to three things. One is that, I mean, I grew up in Chicago, so there was always the excitement of the futures market. I never worked as a securities dealer or anything like that, but I saw the people screaming on the floor and everything. And if you saw that movie, Wolf of Wall Street, it's really intoxicating to some people the first time you see it. So I never actually managed to get a job in Wall Street after Yale or whatever, but I did, like later I sort of worked my way in as a computer consultant, so I was in that world and knew something about the mechanics of how securities trading works, just from working on the plumbing or the information systems, so to speak. But then right off the beginning, when I got like bitten by the Bitcoin bug in 2016, I'd read these articles about the BitMEX guys, the one I mentioned, Arthur Hayes, and I went to Hong Kong, and I mean, the idea of spending, at the time, the ghastly amount of $50,000, and then sending it to, 5 guys with servers across the Pacific or whatever seemed a little out there, and I was still learning how it worked. But they seemed completely level-headed. I had a nice time talking to them, as I did a lot of people, and I was just really impressed with them. Also, like, you worry that you're dealing with sharks. This is just a personal experience I had at the beginning in the futures markets, but it was with the people who ran the exchange. They weren't billionaires like they are now, but they were, literally billionaires with a B, but they were pretty successful, and they spent, 5 or 6 hours talking to me. And then one of the two guys, Ben Dello, who was at the time, I don't know now, England's youngest self-made billionaire, went to a cheap Indian restaurant in Hong Kong and answered like the most basic questions about Bitcoin for about 2 hours to people who had just nothing to offer him financially anyway, and it was a nice experience, and it sort of led from there where I was more interested. I was doing it for myself for a while, but and experimenting with it, but it wasn't until 2019, as I said, when I found out I was going to have some family responsibilities, I was like, okay, I better figure out a way to make money in crypto, US dollars reliably over a quarterly period.
So then, if I were to ask you, right, so let's take us back a little bit, and then we'll get back into, like why people are here, right, which is, well, how do you not lose money in crypto? How do you make money? So we'll get to that, so just be patient. So when we spoke before, the brief chat, you were saying about, the other side of 50, right? Something happened, a life event that you just intimated that, but go into a little bit more detail that gave you this inertia, this push, I've got to do something.
There were a few things that happened at the same time. One was again, just discovering Bitcoin. And I would call myself a complete idiot because I'd heard about it for the first time 6 years earlier in 2010 when there was so much interesting appreciation and work in the marketplace to do and everything. And I thought that was so silly. And I think the problem was not that I was ever really wealthy and powerful, but in my 30s I was probably more than most. And if I had to send $1 million to Mongolia for some reason, the conversation would be like, like, hey, Roberto, can you please, get the wire instructions for this guy or whatever, and it just wasn't an issue. I didn't appreciate that people had banking problems, and that anybody being able to send anybody money was really valuable, not just financially valuable, but sort of socially liberating also. So that was one thing. I just became completely intoxicated by it the second time I saw it. And then just everybody I talked to seemed so intoxicated by the process or the blockchain itself, instead of how much money they can make or their business. I know this really smart Russian guy, Sergey Nikitin, one of my friends from graduate school, and he'd started a business that was really successful. Like, he had one of the early Bitcoin or sort of peer-to-peer exchanges. I think it was doing like $60 million a month or something when I met him. But all he wanted to talk about was how incredible the Bitcoin blockchain was, and how just brilliantly conceived a financial system it was, and really, it's just a little code was always started this business. You know what I mean? So it was. It was just refreshing. I mean, there was just a real energy about it. I think there still is, so that was good. But I mean, I know this is kind of silly and trite, but it's the truth. My dog died. I mean, like, I lived in the city I hated. I was in a bad L.A. I was in a bad business deal. But I had this old dog I loved who finally expired, and I guess I didn't really officially become a digital nomad, but I started to travel and everything, and go talk to the people in Hong Kong, explore things. So I think it was just something I was really enthusiastic about. I mean, but the thing is, like, I don't think a lot of people can invent careers. I was like almost 50 at the time, and to have that level of excitement, it's really a blessing, and I'm thankful for it. I don't know how I was so lucky to just have the time to explore it when it came up.
One of the things which I enjoy, I'm 52 later on. And, I remember growing up that I used to think that 16 was old. When I reached 16, I thought, well, 18. 18's really old, and I reached 18, it's like, oh. And then 21, I thought, that's it, I'm done, right? And the years kept on going, yet right now I feel like I'm better than I was 20 years ago, right? And I remember hearing people say that, but not understanding it, right? Now I'm there, I understand it, right? I'm fitter, I'm stronger, I'm faster up here, I'm more determined, I'm more connected to my heart and what I want to do, right? So, for you, like, which, and then we'll move on after this. So if I would ask you, which qualities that you possess or that you nurtured were the key qualities that brought you from somewhere like Yale, where you were studying and you obviously graduated from there into traveling around the world, adopting a new technology, and then becoming a hedge fund manager, and then doing this wonderful token that we're going to talk about later on. So which qualities do you think, this now goes to give you more time to think, this goes to the people out there looking at you now saying, well, I'm above 50, many people in the world tell me that my life is kind of done. I'm either retiring in 10 years, my life is kind of not finished, but I'm kind of reaching the twilight of my years. So what I want to hear from you is that which qualities are the most important ones that you found for you allowed you to re-embrace life in the way that you have to move on and do new things?
Well, I mean, I guess it's just being sort of, three things. Be eclectic. Like, don't just, if your child's the most important thing, your business is the most important thing, they're not the only important thing. And you still have to be healthy and learn new things and everything. And the world's changing at a remarkably positive rate. Another is, we're just lucky. I mean, you're living in this time, people say life's short. It may be, but it's a lot longer than it used to be. Apparently, my grandfather, rest in peace, I never met, just keeled over when he was 50. My dad's now outlived him by about 87, he's 87, so 37 years. And, I had my first child at 52. So it's like, we're just really fortunate. I know maybe because of news, me and the internet, you could be sad about things going on. But if you asked yourself if you could, trade with someone who's a senator or president 100 years ago, or Louis XIV or whatever, most people thought about it, probably wouldn't. You know what I mean? It's just, we're just really fortunate now. So just be open-minded, take care of yourself, and people around you who are important, and Yeah, stay open-minded. Keep learning. I mean, it's a cliche. You hear it all the time, but it's really true. I'm trying to think of. I had another point, but sorry, it'll come back.
That's okay. The other point, it will come back. So now, for the people here, we've spoken about this, silicone barley. We've spoken about what it takes to create that. Which again, for those of you missing it earlier on, it's availability of capital in close proximity, talent, and projects. So of those three, so you've got capital, talent, and projects. Which one do you excel in? And which one do you think, if there is one, that you need more time to develop?
Me personally? I don't know. I mean, obviously they're all important. I'm doing the best I can. I mean, in terms of labor, none of it's from Bali. I think that if I finally come in and say I'm really living here, local hires would be very beneficial to me. Right now, but I mean, maybe you're just fighting a trend. I mean, there are issues. I mean, you have to form a company, or not that big of a deal. But look at Manchester United. How many people are English on that team? You just, fortunately, due to the internet, you can just get the people where they are. What's nice about both my experience with the blockchain and Bali itself, I think your virtues do come from actions these days instead of being well born, so to speak, or whatever credentials you have. So, like fortunately, an open-minded guy like Ichi here was willing to sort of sponsor a new, a forward-looking project. I'm trying to think of what else. Capital's important, of course. You got to pay your rent, earn money, save money. I mean, Bali is also great just because it is a developing economy. So like Ichi in Los Angeles or New York, frankly, it would be hard to get his time or reach, even though he's very important and a big businessman or whatever. Someone with a good idea, it's a little easier to get in the door and talk to them. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting people, a lot of ideas. It's not my heart, it's my head, it's my feet. I keep coming back here and profiting from the time I've been here.
Got it. So now let's get into this. So, for the people here who really want to know the burning question, like how do you, benefit from crypto without losing money? So if I ask you, like how do you do that, right? And then maybe now's the time, maybe to go a little bit into the mechanics if you want, maybe not so deep, but into the mechanics of how you're able to actually do that. Because again, the title obviously workshopped it, but it kind of came from you. So I just want to know, like, how do you do it? And what can you impart to the people watching here so they can learn something from it?
Well, normally I wouldn't. I mean, I could give you cliches: loose lips sink ships, the whale that spouts gets harpooned, whatever. So normally I wouldn't even talk about this, but I think this particular trade is dead, dead, dead. So I'll talk about it because it's interesting. With the sort of the rebirth of some financial markets through crypto, you had these futures markets. Okay, so traditionally futures markets. Let me answer the question very basically, and then I'll drill down in it. How do you not lose money? Define money, because I've seen people who are really successful at raising money, but had it but they were judging their results in U.S. dollars, and half of it was sitting in cash, and half of it was sitting in crypto. And if there's just a general market crash, they're going to show crappy record. Sorry, you shouldn't swear on. But anyway,
crap is not swearing, brother.
Okay.
Good. Swear away.
Okay, that's pretty mild for Nick. But anyway, so, and these people were really sophisticated. I won't name names, but, have really big positions in finance and knew about hedging and futures and everything. So say what you're going to do. And we found out a way not to lose money in dollars. And that one is getting harder, but we found a new way. And I'll get back into that. Crypto, too. I mean, like, for the last 3 years, I had all the crypto people saying I was crazy for being like short crypto, which you basically have to do for the trade. You buy the future. I'm sorry, you buy the Bitcoin and then sell, or Ethereum or whatever, and sell the future. And so you're technically negative. So I mean, the hardest thing in the world. I remember there were trades I made where it just popped a $30,000 trade by flipping one future to another. But I accumulated what was effectively a $1 million loss on the position. If I'd been positive, it's really hard to stay disciplined sometimes. So like later we created a fund that's supposed to accumulate more crypto, but you really have to decide between the two because they're different monetary instruments. So anyway, and then finally, I'm sure you know people who've just always worked really hard, saved money, and done useful things. And I think with the evolving blockchain, like you can invent real-world products that are, very, very beneficial and groundbreaking. And hopefully, Ichi here is going to help us do it, or we'll get this thing rolling at Tropical and then elsewhere in the world. But more on that later. So, I mean, do you want to go into the crypto money fund dollar trade?
Yeah. So there are two funds, two hedge funds that you're running. So maybe go into those. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So with Crypto Money Fund Dollar Hedge, I just kind of accidentally discovered it. And I actually had a long discussion for you before we started doing it with Arthur Hayes. I said, yeah, it's solid, do that trade. It takes a little bit of confidence to start doing it. And then I was very confident with it. But basically, financial markets futures markets evolved. So like back in the day in Osaka, the Japanese rice farmer didn't have to bet the farm. If it was a good year, he'd produce a lot of crop. You could actually short a future. You promised to deliver the rice. Saudi Aramco has how many hundreds of thousands of employees? I don't know, but if they got a big tanker with $300 million going to Genoa or Galveston Bay or wherever it's going, they want to short the future so they can meet payroll, or at least some of the oil, so they can meet payroll at the end of the month, right? So now companies, I don't know about the rice farmers, but like these are generally cash settled contracts, right? They become physically settled within 3 days of expiration. Normally people wouldn't hear about it, but maybe you noticed in the news during the 2000 energy price crisis that people were actually paying you to take their oil because there were just no containers for them for physically delivered contracts. So, I mean, they just had tankers that they had to unload. But usually it's the opposite, where like a war will break out or something, prices go through the ceiling, and you're short the contract and you have to put a lot more money up as collateral. So what I discovered with the coin delivered contracts is you can actually post the coin on big exchanges like Binance, BitMEX, Deribit, Kraken, and the liquidation price, well, they'll bankrupt your contract, is infinite because you've already delivered what you're supposed to. So you're still just going to capture the 2 or 3% between what the coin cost, the Bitcoin, and the future. But it was pretty good money. I'll get back to that in a second. But the analogy is like, on the way to Galveston Bay, this big Saudi oil tanker is allowed to put a big hose into the NYMEX, or Chicago Mercantile Exchange, dump all the oil in there, and in case the price goes too high, and they're out of money, they can just deliver the oil to whoever's going to buy it, whoever's long the contract. So that doesn't really exist anywhere except in Bitcoin that I found. It may with currency contracts, but when I briefly looked into it, there wasn't enough money in them. So that's a pretty good trade. Like 3% a quarter is like what it compounds to 37, 40% or whatever. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 30. Sorry, that's really low. But we got like really high returns, and this is what happens. Like you buy something for $1,000 and sell it for $1,300, and people are really excited. So the future is above the asset price. It's called the contango trade on Wall Street. People do it with gold, wheat, whatever, for a lot less money. I've seen it as high as like 5 or 6% from time to time. Like Bitcoin, people are really going crazy speculating. But there's a risk-free trade where you actually do buy the Bitcoin for $10,000, sell it for $13,000, $14,000, whatever, and you bank the difference. Now that's pretty good. Okay, what's very good is that the market crashed a lot. Now it was, due to interest rates kicking up, whatever. But sometimes it was as silly as Mark Zuckerberg testifying in front of Congress. So people would get nervous and start selling the futures. And then the future is actually under what the underlying asset price cost. So that's called backwardation on Wall Street, where the futures are actually under the asset price. So basically, you could sell something you could buy something for $1,000, sell it for, $1,100, and not that much, but a lot more. Then it crashes, and essentially you can buy it back for $900 and pocket all that money. And it was supposed to take 90 days, but sometimes it only took 6 days. And so it was just a really amazing trade. It's gone now, I think, but it was great while it lasted. Sorry, too windy a response, or?
Look, let's have a bit of audience. So who understood that? Who kept up with that? Man. There's a few. Good. Wow. Who didn't keep up with that? Okay. Good. All right. So now there's a second fund.
Yeah, top 10 crypto investment fund. So that was actually more recent, and it came out of three things. One is, like, I actually really do believe in Bitcoin and crypto, and I have some of my own. But basically, all I'm doing for at least initially for the crypto money fund dollar hedge was short in crypto. You'd buy it and sell it, and then you were short until the end of the quarter. And discipline, if you're really not going to lose money in dollars, you have to stay short, because if you're long, then you can lose money on this particular contract. On this particular trade. But the genesis for that was three ways. One is, first of all, that people are asking, well, I want to be long and accumulate more crypto in a trade. And there's some ways that are very low risk to do that, and I'll go into it if we have time. The second was the war was starting, and everybody thought there was going to be a war in Ukraine, and someone asked me, well, what will be the effect on Bitcoin and crypto prices? And I started to try and give a thoughtful answer. You say, well, maybe the Russians will have to trade to export oil by doing crypto trades, and that would jack up the demand for it. But maybe there'll be inflation, and the Fed will bring the rates up, and asset prices will crash, which did eventually happen. But you know what? What I realized is there's tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars betting real money on that and coming to consensus. And I always really believed in financial markets. And they're also good at decoding things that you could never decode. I'm going to go off on a little tangent, but like there's some, I started studying this intensively, and I read The Wisdom of Crowds, a very good book about how generally the market is, right?
The Wisdom of Crowds.
Yeah, it's a good book. And then it starts with an English scene where people are trying to guess the weight of a cow, and it's like at some fair, and it's 687 pounds, and the answers are all over again, but it came to like 688 pounds, or like within a pound or something. And then I read a book about this before, and then I looked into it. In World War II, this is not a time when people study markets at all, or are involved with the financial markets like now, but their ability to predict, this is from the American perspective, predict the outcome of battles or strategic events that would affect people's welfare, of course, on a humanitarian basis, but also just monetarily, because if you have, some fascist government like Imperial Japan controlling a large block of trade, you're not going to trade with them, whereas if it recedes, you will. But so, not surprisingly, for instance, when the Nazi forces overran Stalingrad, the stock market was cratered, and then it started to rally that year, and there was a huge rally when eventually the Soviet forces retook it. At the time, they were a wartime ally. But also, you look at battles. Here, let's put your hand up. Who knows where Tinian Island is? Anybody? It's a little island, a rock in the middle of the Pacific in the Mariana Chain, about 1,600 miles from Tokyo. But when it was taken, the stock market started to rally in the fourth quarter, even though there was nothing good happening in the war. You heard about the battles of the Bulge and all these huge reversals. And I think what was going on is it was just strategically the most important thing that happened in World War II. After that, it was game, set, and match. The Allies had won in the Pacific because they had these long-range bombers. Japan was vulnerable, but no one to this day could probably name. Most people cannot name where it is. The Enola Gay took off with the atomic bomb from there eventually, so it was just hugely important. But tiny financial players understand that, and not everybody else does, because they have to think about it all the time. So this is what I'm getting at. I was missing out a lot on. I was not as long Bitcoin as I'd like to be, and then also. There were stories like Solano that were quite interesting and quite compelling that I missed out on. And that's an interesting story too, because I'd done the one thing you're supposed to. I read the white paper, I monitored the Telegram chats to see what kind of progress there was. I was watching the NFT auctions on it and things like that. And I even flew to Point Break and went to a Solano conference, and they wouldn't even let me in. I said I was a hedge fund manager. I would have lied and said I owned a modeling agency or something, but there's just no way. And but I met a lot of interesting people. people. And I invested in Solana. Short term anyway is a pretty good investment. But when I decided to break out all my crypto holdings and just pro rata invest in the top 10 crypto, I actually invested it more in Solana than when I'd researched it. So obviously people had been looking at it and research, and someone thought it was a good idea. I think it had a $10 billion market cap at that point in time. So I'm just saying, like, the philosophy of the fund is buy the index, so to speak. It's not able to do it perfectly. The other thing you can do is actually, once you decide to do that, and our outlook is by the quarter, without going into too much of the details, staking proof of stake coins is very safe. So you can actually earn crypto in that period. But you have to be comfortable with, okay, you may have more Solana, but the market might crash, and in dollars it's going to be worth less. So you just have to have in your mind you're okay with that. You just want more Bitcoin, and you think long term it's a good investment, or Ethereum or Solana. So.
Got it. So look, what we're going to do, because again, like you, my friend, have got a lot to say. Right, and which I knew going in. I was like, Nicholas can talk, but you know what? Like, there's a lot of experience in there. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of great stories. So, what I'd love to do for a minute to bring us to this place of real-world adoption. So, Brother Itchy, a bit too early for you, but we're going to slide you in because I really want you to talk about this coin, this token. Sorry. And by the way, before we get there, does anyone have any questions at this point? Yeah, great. So what we'll do, while Itchy's getting sorted out, Sister Ayu, we'll get this microphone and we'll give it to Bruno to ask his question, and then we'll bring it back to Itchy afterwards. Right, so cool. All right, so we'll give that to Bruno, and then while we're doing that, we'll work Itchy out so he's in shot. Great, I'll move this a little bit to this way. We're still good. Yeah, still good. So Nicholas, if you just move across a little bit, slider over there. Good stuff. Now there's all three of us in here. Good. So Bruno, over to you with the question.
Hi. So thank you for describing us what you're doing. So two questions I have. The first one is, where is your hedge fund located? In the US, or you have it in some other entity like, I don't know, BVI, Cayman?
We're located in the Republic of Georgia.
Ah, okay.
It was actually our English law firm that recommended it, but it was remarkably easy to set up there and crypto-friendly.
Yeah, because I know it depends where you're setting it. You're going to have different regulation that you apply. And also, my second question is, you say you do futures. Which kind of leverage you use when you trade with futures?
The particular trade that I described does not work with leverage because it can bankrupt. Like we have these cute T-shirts. I'll pass out later if you want some. But invest like a baller, sleep like a baby. That was our American guy came up with that. But anyway, the point is, like, they ask what makes you lose sleep at night? With regard to this, absolutely nothing. I mean, these contracts cannot bankrupt, but the reason is because they're fully collateralized. I mean, the truth of the matter is, our results are like 99% like accurate, but I probably cheated a little too because we're a bit over collateralized. Mostly because I don't want to even get. If the bankruptcy price is 100 million, I still don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? It's just nice to not have to worry about that. So to answer your question, zero, except when we're entering trades, or sometimes. I'm sorry. Do you want me to answer? A little bit we made money by, we wrote a computerized program to arbitrage different futures. Like, that's not a perfectly efficient market in crypto. So sometimes, like, the future on Deribit is more expensive than Kraken or whatever, and you can buy one and sell the other, and they do flip back. So that gives us a little bit of extra yield too. But you have to have more than 100% collateral in that case, or capital,
so
if you don't.
So you just keep putting money.
What?
You just keep putting money to make sure that your contracts stay open.
Well, no, I'm just saying we'll use leverage, but only when we're sitting there monitoring it, and there are two contracts, and we might arbitrage, but we don't, like, I wouldn't close, if no one's supervising it, I'm not going to go to bed with any leverage on, so to speak.
Thank you.
Great questions, Bruno. Does anyone else have any questions at this point? Are you catching a fly? All right, not for now. Yeah, one over here. So if we slide it back over here, and then after this, we'll go to Brother Itchy. Thank you very much indeed, Ayu. Also, Ayu, if you could just move this Instagram live phone just around a little bit so we can see Itchy. Yeah, that would be great. Yep, something like that's good. All right, great. So over to you. Yeah.
Yes, for me I have like 2 questions that's kind of related. The first one is like, what is your average size of the trade, mainly on the future market? Because I'm working with different hedge funds, and a lot of times, sometimes you are stuck on the market because you don't have enough volume to buy your position, or let's say to when you want to stop your shorts, there's not enough volume, mainly with the altcoin. And what is the average size of trades? And because you told me you are like a hedge fund manager, and like, what is overall the size of your hedge fund? Just because like something that I'm facing, for instance, is like the size of the trade based on the volume on some different cryptos.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
I'm going to duck the question because of the whale who sprouts gets harpooned. But I mean, generally, before, we would do $1 million trades, and I did learn this. I'd said that I'd worked on Wall Street, but as a computer consultant. I'd never really been a principal before, and so we did get in trouble on low volume exchanges. And I remember I was like sort of a big brother who traded index futures at Morgan Stanley, or one of those places. But anyway, there were times when I had to let a future expire because someone definitely saw me there and was playing with me because we were just too big of a position. And so within 30 minutes of it expiring, I would have had to spend 75 basis points, a whole percentage point, to buy back the contract and flip it. So in this case, I sort of started to leverage out of it and sell it, and then just sold it on the spot market, and then while maintaining the hedge. And then fortunately, we didn't get killed on that trade. But it was definitely an issue. And now the reason I want to talk about size is because actually we're not that big anyway, but I've noticed we've started to invest in and hedge our position in liquidity pools, which is a little messier than that beautiful contango trade. But really, I've seen us push down the yield on it. So I just don't want to say too much. But yeah, it's a factor, you're right. But some of the exchanges are remarkably large now. Like Binance, I think, BIMEX was doing $1 trillion a year. Binance might be larger. So because you can use leverage on the derivative exchanges, they tend to be pretty large. FTX is huge. And they're actually higher than some of the traditional exchanges like CME at this point.
Yeah. My question was directly related to the size because from what I can feel, from my experience on the crypto markets, for instance on FTX, except Bitcoin and ETH, it's hard to push a trade over $1 million, for instance, and that's why it was the goal of my question. Yeah,
I mean, it affected our trading strategy too. Sorry, can I keep talking?
Yeah. Look, we'll stop it after this one, but please continue. Listen, you've taken the time to ask the question, so I think the least we can do is take the time to answer it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So we one of the, again, I came to this as an entrepreneur, so I'm a bit unsophisticated compared to someone who's really ran a desk at Goldman or whatever. And so, but we were good traders, but one guy in London was calling me like a sniper. So we wrote this Nanonic program that looks for the tip of the order book, and we only hit market orders. So and we kind of control the volume of it. So they are smaller markets, but that was our world. And you sit there long enough, you get some interesting opportunities. But any human's going to get bored and just hit it. So eventually, even as a small company, we invested in coding some computerized trading systems to the exchange APIs. Just because of this, you're right. You had to take in little bits. But a little bit in financial markets isn't really that little.
Thank you. So look, what we're going to do now, so that microphone, you can pass it back to Ayu, my brother, and then we'll have some more questions in a minute. So one of the things that we spoke about last week, so decrypting Silicon Valley. If you didn't watch it, find it on YouTube. Just type in decrypting Silicon Valley, and you'll find an episode. We had 6 panelists up here from memory. It was obviously the other Italian brother. One is sitting here, Bruno. It was the other one, Emilio. It was who's Definity ICP. It was Melissa, who is S21, the largest crypto community here in Bali. It was Adrian Keat, another kind of ecosystem builder, and then we had Oki Sabajo, which a lot of you here would know, Indonesian, beautiful guy, very accomplished in business. space and has started an social impact NFT called Impact NFT. There you go. And the last one, who was the last one? Said Melissa. Antria, thank you very much indeed, and Antria from T-Hub by Toko Crypto. So it was a really interesting episode. It went on for 2 hours, which I knew it'd be long. My God, that was long, but it was good. So make sure you go and you watch that. And for those of you here as well, please keep in mind that August the 4th, I'll be co-hosting this one as well in Park Ubud. We have the Bali Blockchain Ecosystem Conference 2022, and then we have another bunch more. We have CoinFest, and the other one, Bruno, shout it out for me. Crypto Week. So look out for these ones. For those of you in the space who's interested in blockchain and crypto and so on, these are things here in Bali that you should really be a part of, and we believe that it's part of this larger ecosystem that we call Silicon Bali. Now, one of the biggest points about crypto and blockchain that is something that is very close to our hearts is people actually using it for a real world use, as opposed to, and I'm not dissing it, this project will deliver this. Our vision is this. We believe that this is going to be the case in 2 months, 2 weeks, 2 years. So as we're discussing with Emilio actually, it's almost the need to incubate ideas, the need to actually take action, less talk, more action. Basically is where we feel the industry is up to right now. So, without putting too much heat on this, obviously my brother here, Ichi Yamada, who's one of the owners here at Tropical Nomad, he's our technical partner. He's my dearest friend here in Bali. I love the man to death. Not to death, but love him a lot. Why do we say that, by the way, to death? Why do we say that? But you know what I mean, right? So, and one of the things that drew us together actually when we started to film SpeakuP Monday here was the fact that we both had the same vision. You know, this way of connecting trusted networks here in Bali and Indonesia, so people that from the outside looking in can come here and have an easier way in. They don't need to make mistakes. They don't need to lose money. They don't need to get ripped off or be scammed or anything like that. They can literally just come in and set up shop, provided that what they're doing is having a positive impact on humanity. So those of you here know I speak a lot about Tri Hitakarana. I won't go into it again today, but if you want me to, I will afterwards. But that's really, you know, what binds everything together, this conscious business, this conscious, evolved approach to creating projects that have a positive, powerful impact, not just on me, not just on you, not just on we, not just on they. They're quadruple wins, as Guido put it for me the first time that they said this some months ago, but it's a quadruple win outcome. That's what blockchain can deliver. So that's a bit of an intro. So Ichi, here at Tropical Nomad, can you tell us a little bit, when we pass that microphone to Ichi, tell us a little bit about this token that's been developed. What is it for? What does it do? And why are you doing it?
Yeah, that was a quite an introduction. Thank you, Rob.
I'm sorry, I get carried away.
Usually I'm behind the camera, so I never really come up here, and I'm not really used to this. But thank you very much for the invitation, Nick, Rob. Yeah. Thank you. So, yes, so yeah, we're from Tropical Nomad, and we obviously are working space, and we also have a great vision, big vision actually, so that we can be part of kind of driving force behind this entrepreneurial, blockchain and all that, tech and everything. Bali has attracted so much talents, and it's amazing what everybody's talking about. And from our workplace operators, and what we want to do is that we really want to contribute as much as possible, and so that we can actually make a difference. We want to make it easier. We really want to help. We want to do something that can actually say that, oh, this is Bali, this is amazing. We want to actually showcase something, not for ourselves, but really for this community of this amazing people. There's so much talent. I mean, it's from an art point of view, NFTs and everything. Bobby, you've done, amazing exhibitions. And also there's so many different conferences, and there's so many, movers of the crypto world right now here, really doing amazing work really. Maybe there's no like benefits that you can actually immediately harvest or to take advantage of it. But we are building a future, and it takes time, and it does require a place like this, like in Bali, that is something like. It has to be something conducive. It has to be something very positive. It's not just about investment. It's not just about making money, but we are building a future, and that's what we actually really feel. So even for this, our token program. So Tokenize, it's an amazing program. Basically, this is our dream of maybe last about 3 years. We've been talking about it, but we never really did it. Why? Because there was so much talk about negativity, actually, about launching a token. And I'm talking about utility token. Basically, what I'm interested in is not to make it into investment scheme, but I want to make it into a real use case for tokens, because there's so much potential, but we haven't quite figured that out. What is the strength? How can people actually leverage on it, use it, truly use it for something meaningful? That's why we said we're gonna have to do a trial. We're gonna have to work on this and just make it available and let the people use it. If there's a risk, we will take some of the risk. We'll make sure that the people will never get, scammed. We'll make sure that the people will not be, taken advantage of. So that part, because as a trial, we will make sure that this is done in a sandbox. It properly, it's not going to harm anybody. Really that we will take that risk rather as a platform, as a workspace. But there must be something that we can really create out of this. So that's where we start talking about, we have to do something, and we're going to figure it out. So one of the first thing is that we are creating this token called TN. Basically, it is a token that we can sell and basically have a secondary market where people could actually trade. Our focus is actually to see what can people be creative about it. Now, what we're doing is that we are selling membership for co-working space. We are selling food and beverages, and then we are saying that there are many cases that people actually when they leave Bali for a few months, they said that, I still have a few more months worth of membership or food credits that I didn't quite finish. I wish I could just pass it on to my friend here who's still staying in Bali. How can I do that? Right now, there isn't a really effective way of doing this. So we came up first with, that may be the use case. But maybe as simple as that. But let's start with that and see that how people actually can use it and be creative about it. That was actually our first ideas. That's how we started. Yeah.
So now, so Nicholas, maybe for you, and I'm going to limit you with time now because I know you can talk. All right. So me too. So, could you describe how it works in some well-chosen words?
So first of all, the most important thing is I guess we went from being sort of traders to dealers, I'd say, in assets or whatever. And you got to believe in the business. So I just want to state emphatically that I really like the co-working space. I've been a customer off and on for 3 years. I want to explore lunch, but there's so much good organic food here. I just eat here a lot and everything. I have people over. It's just I'm into the product. You know what I mean? So anyway, when I came up with this idea, that's a great thing about Bali. It is friendly, open-minded, and I was able to talk to Ichi about it. But anyway, so a little bit about the product idea.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So much of corporate finance is after the fact, and that's good. It's amazing that you can buy a house and then get it financed, right? Or buy a car and pay it off on retail installment contracts, or if you own some kind of clothing factory, there's a invoice discounting or factoring in case you're not able to have the money to deliver it. But before the fact's also legit. Coupons like Amazon cards and airline miles and stuff, the people love them. I think you can gift them in some cases, but basically they're really great for the business because you get the cash up front. Even in co-working space, this is a really well-run business and you get the money up front, but the radiator could blow up or whatever you have in Bali, a meteor could hit it, whatever. You have unexpected capital expenses sometimes, and it's just never bad to have cash in in the bank. Also, like businesses, there are people that save and are reasonable. Like I don't know if they're a good customer, but my alma mater, Yale University, is basically like an investment fund masquerading as a university. I mean, currently they've accumulated $40 billion or something crazy like that, hitting up alumni. But the point is, like, they make 10% a year. They understand that number really well. Someone who saved for college and it has a $60,000 bill could get $3,000, $5,000 off, and it would still pay Yale University to sell that coupon. Then the kid wants to go write a novel or run off to Bali and surf, which I support. They can sell to someone else. Like, as long as the thing that makes the product have integrity is that you have to trust the business has to have integrity, and also people have to be given the option to pay with tokenized, so someone else can just offer the token if they're not wanting to gift it or sell it, and then it's really valuable for everybody involved. It's just a good transaction, I think.
Love that. And look, so 3 quick bullet points, and we'll go to any questions you might have. So how does it work? So if I'm a customer, like, walk me through it, but bullet points, right? Maybe Itchy, you want to do this? Maybe. All right. Yeah. Well, so bullet points. I walk in. What do I do? How do I activate it? How does it work?
Okay, so, and this is we made a landing page for it if you want the fine details. But basically, because in Indonesia, from a regulatory standpoint, you're not allowed to pay for goods or services with crypto. You just go up to the front desk and give them rupee or your credit card, and they would give you a credit, maybe at a discount or something. And that still offers a second benefit. Well, it's easy. Like, everything transaction has a receipt now that everybody has. And then also, if you want to gift it, the gift of tropical nomads, or you have to leave to go back home, some family emergency, whatever, you don't lose the money. You can just sell it to the next person who comes in. They will make that available at the front desk. Now, from that point, I was showing off to someone here. We did a DeFi network. Like, the exchange is all there. DeFi is amazing. It works really well. It's secure. It's easy to build a situation where buyer and seller have a record of exactly what it was, when it happened, how much was paid, and that's great. And so you can just buy it with dollar tether if you want. There's always on the Tropical Nomad site, just follow the links there. You can buy it or sell it, transfer it, or pay for something, and then there's like a menu item of things you can pay, or you can write other and say what that other thing was. So I was thinking, like, okay, if everybody's customer, nobody's your customer, right? Maybe 10 people will use it in the first month. So I was showing off to someone here and like, yeah, we got this great program. We're so proud of it. And I told her, like, but you have to have MetaMask you have to have a MetaMask to use it. And she's like, oh, I've got one. Let's try it. And this is like a health consultant, nothing related to crypto. So I might get an enthusiastic reply. And then, I'm hoping it builds into something we can work more with. But I think it's going to work. Once you step over that chasm and start using crypto, people really like it for a variety of unanticipated reasons.
Great. Again, what I like about this is that it's happening, right? It's not, it's action as opposed to talk. Now, does anyone have any more questions? We've got, I'd say, about another, coming to you, Bob, we've got about another 5 or 10 minutes. Then we'll close off Instagram Live and the camera here. And then, then Nicholas will stay behind, answer a few more questions that maybe are of more of a private nature if you want. That's also okay. And then after that, we'll wrap up.
Oh, you have to get these T-shirts so I don't go over my luggage requirement.
Yeah, and he's got some T-shirts.
So we'll do for all of you.
We'll do it after. Everyone here will get a T-shirt. Over to you, brother. Yeah.
Not working? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, my question is, like, beside excitement of, like, blockchain and everything and using crypto, in this specific case, and I don't want to be a bummer because I don't know the details yet, I'm wondering what is the main reason that pushed you to use a blockchain to accomplish this goal? Because what you're describing to me can just be done with a normal database and just implement in the system that you have Nexus or another one, and just normal credits, because you don't need like a distributed ledger in this case, from what I've understood of the project. You can just, like Amazon doesn't use it. The coupons there, they release them. You could just release credits. We could just transfer credits between users. It's just a closed system here. So, yeah, you understand my question?
My question? Okay.
Thank you.
It works remarkably well. And unfortunately, I was so busy with the Contago trade because we're making money. When DeFi first came out, I didn't look at it. And it just, I mean, I could tell you my aha moment and explain the intellectual bridge I made that made me understand how great it is. But in the case of Amazon cards, you can sell them, but it's the one place I found was this bizarre site, Paxful, where I could explain how it works, but there's still problems that you have to trust the seller. Usually it works out pretty well, but there's just no transparent, cheap, fast way to do it where you don't really have to trust the counterparty. Bitcoin, anybody can send anybody money, but it's a dumb transaction. There's no quid pro quo. In the case of the Tropical Nomads token, it's clear that I got the money, you got the tokens. If I paid for something, I got the coffee because I put in a memo. He got the tokens that had already been prepaid for services. If you want to know what it's selling for, now of course it's ambitious for business people of our size to do this, but I think the implications are huge. I can get into that if you want later. But when someone leaves Tropical Nomad, they don't have to write anything up and put it on the board. They don't have to solicit anybody. They can just put basically an ask for their coupons on, and someone coming to the front door can say, okay, well, I mean, I can pay $1.97 or 95 cents. I think I'll take 95. The other thing is it does work remarkably well. It's secure. There's a complete record. I was surprised by this, but my programmers just dove into it, and start to finish, what was it, like 3 weeks or something? Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's built out. It just works well. I'm a convert. I was shocked. It's groundbreaking.
Thank you, brother. So we have one more question over here, I think. Yeah, over there. So we pass it to our brother Bob. Yeah, thanks for the question, man. Appreciate it, yeah.
Can anybody be an LP? Like if you're going to do the Tropical Nomad token in a liquidity pool with either USDT or USDC. Yeah, just because I'm thinking about buy pressure and sell pressure, like if I was an LP and there was more sell pressure than buy pressure, then possibly like I would kind of lose out because of impermanent loss. Have you considered that? Because I remember like we had this conversation. It might have been like 2 or 3 months ago at the exhibition, and then you asked the question again last week. Why not have instead of having Tropical Nomad, let's say as fungible tokens, why not make them NFTs? And then because you're on Binance Smart Chain, if you use Altura, which is a different protocol, you can actually update the metadata behind the NFT. So you would have like, let's say, expiration dates. You would so that the price is fixed. This is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so there are two answers, but I'll let someone else talk first if they want to.
Okay. You, brother?
Well, okay. So as well as being a sophisticated mechanism, which I'll get to in a second, it's actually a remarkably crude mechanism. I mean, you can just put a bid up. So it's not. I mean, I think the natural demand will come from people just coming to the front desk and knowing there's a cheaper option if they want it. Also, in the case of Ichi, like, not to spoiler alert, I want speculators to make money because they should. It's God's work. But in this case, like, I think Tropical itself is pretty sincere that people should be able to sell the tokens again. Maybe a little bit of a haircut, like 2% or something. So they'll put a buy floor in with the cash. They're sort of committed to collecting in a public blockchain wallet, and they're not going to like take all the money and just yet they'll leave some there to sort of put a floor in the price. Now is for the second question. I promise to go in a long-winded response, but one of the things that just totally blew me away when I finally understood the brilliance of like the Binance chain or Sushi Shop, whatever, DOIDX, is that someone just completely coded the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, they're specialists in the pit, and the algo works a lot better and more fearlessly, from what I can tell, than the actual people. So I'm not saying the assets on this exchange are desirable. People have to decide that for themselves. But like autopilots work better than pilots sometimes. DeFi exchanges may work better than actual regulated centralized decentralized finance exchanges. I could tell you what got me over the hook, but only if I have time.
I really appreciate you holding yourself there, because you can feel it in him, right? Because it's like, I gotta go, there's more, and he's kind of holding himself back. Otherwise, we'll be here for 2 hours, I'm sure. But here's the good news. So after this, in about a few minutes, we'll probably close this one. We're at the hour, and we'll have a few private questions. And after that, you're free to ask him as many questions as you like. Tropical Nomad is open for 24 hours, so there's no limit on your time. Though the cafe and restaurant may not be open for 24 hours, but if you plan in advance, you'll have enough coffee to keep up with him, right? So there's good things coming, But Ichi, just coming to you, my brother. So is there anything else, before we come back to Nicholas, that comes up for you now in this, talking about Silicon Valley, we're talking about the token. What comes up for you? Yeah.
I think we have to create a culture that it's okay to fail, right? In Bali. Bali is, there's many people actually doing business and all that, and it's extremely entrepreneurial. And I love it because it's like, this is a place that you could actually try out a lot of different kind of business models. You can really trial with the potential customers, because in Bali, there's so many different people from different countries, different regions. So you could actually potentially do A/B tests on every, market potential categories of people, and then try to see what actually sticks, what doesn't. This is the why I like really trying to say that the culture, Bali has what it takes to be a startup culture, because in the startup culture, you cannot be afraid of, making mistakes. That's one. Two is that you also have to always think of, we cannot be too risk averse. Because if we always worry about the regulations, of course they'll try to, see that, okay, you're not doing right, bang. But Indonesia, Bali, you know how it works. There is many ways that we can be creative in finding a solution with the government. We can even actually talk to the government about, hey, these are the potential, outcomes that actually come out from these technologies. So, like discussion of NFT or token based on Binance, there is a lot of discussion. All these details can be. We basically using this trial and proof of concept to understand and see what actually works best. And then we can actually modify, improve, relaunch, iterations of all this. So that's what we are actually trying to demonstrate. We could actually try to be incubators. We can try to be, VCs by having plugged in all these, experts and the components into ecosystem. And then when you actually start to really connect with the, talents, look at you guys. You guys are like amazing talents already here tonight, right? Whole of Bali. Look at all these people with their backgrounds. So we could actually create a very strong ecosystem where there are a lot of strong mentorship. There are a lot of intellectual properties and knowledge sharing and education. Bringing up the Indonesian young, talented, entrepreneurs up to speed with what's happening around the world. We try to also see whether we can go into Indonesian domestic market and try to find a niche where we could actually, connect the different intellectual properties, apply it to this country, which is going to be GDP number 4 in the world, probably in the next 5 to 10 years. So there's a lot of things that actually make sense that if we build a culture that we can actually support, people who's willing to take a risk and try to make a difference. That's what matters to me, actually. So, hopefully that we can, learn from each other, build it together, and make it into very strong, startup fabric, so that we can really change how things are, from what we're doing from the small places like this, and there are also many other wonderful co-working spaces, and we would love to basically infrastructure and the collaborators, facilitators. I don't know what we call ourselves, but yeah, well, really, that's our vision. And yeah,
you know, all of the above. And Guido, you want to add something?
Yeah, very simple and very loud. The word impossible does not exist in my language. So I want to give you an applause, Ichi. I'm proud to know you.
Yes.
thank you.
Well done. Well done. And, you know, before we head back to you, Nicholas, for some closing comments, remember as well, you can keep it short because you're not done yet. We're going to close off the camera and we're going to keep on going, so you make it short. But before we get to that, I just want to say, so everybody here knows, I always talk about Tiri Hita Karana. There's others, Takomasi, Binakatungulika, there's others. But recently I had a bit of a major download, right? So we talk about Silicon Valley, we keep coming back to this, and I got a really firm understanding of how blockchain maps to Tiri Hita Karana, which I won't go into now, but if you want to have a look at it, I did a post with Robert Ian Bonnick, just check that one out on Instagram. It's really cool. Very happy to be here. So that's how much as I'm going to plug that post. But remember, the 4th of August, if you're interested in blockchain, if you're here in Bali, make sure that you attend. It's free at Park Ubud, August 4. I'll be co-hosting with Matt Paul, and it's by Faverse who are presenting it, and it's an opportunity for everyone or anyone who is in the blockchain ecosystem to come and support and to join, to come together. Because remember, there's only 3 things, right? One is the talent. Clearly we have that. Number 2 is the capital. More and more is coming in. And number 3 is the projects which employ the other 2. And that's what it takes to create an ecosystem. And we're well on our way for that. So remember, it's called the Bali Blockchain Ecosystem Conference 2022, and it's at Park Ubud on August the 4th. Nicholas, man, I have been surprised by you. I have been entertained by you. You did really well, mate. You know, there's so much knowledge in you. I can see it. We can feel it. And you did a really great job in finding a way just to let elements of it out without giving the whole thing, right? And again, you have this opportunity to have a chat afterwards. But before we close with you, a few parting words, let people know if they want to connect with you, what is the easiest way for them to find you?
Okay, well, 4 points in ascending order of importance. Number 1 is on the t-shirts, there's a little IR code in back. If you can remember my medieval misspelled long German last name, it's Levenstein.net. There's a contact form, so
Levenstein.net.
Yeah. Okay, and then, or grab the t-shirt, there's an IR code on it. Yes, anyway. So Lufthansa doesn't throw me off the plane on the way home. And then finally, okay, so I've enjoyed these many times from the audience, so thank you for another good conversation from here this time. Thank you, Robert. And Ichi, like the perfect guy. I think I love like his business here, and Ichi's a doer, but also he's been really helpful developing the new product, the token. There's this Japanese saying we talked about, Ishi bashi o tataite wataro, so tap every stone and cross a stone bridge. So he's been really helpful. If it's successful, it's because he was there at the start. So thank you.
Round of applause, everybody. Woo! Thank you.